My name is Thomas Deneuville. I'm the founder and editor of I Care If You Listen. I was asked to come here and talk about the blog and what I've done with the blog over the past year. And I was really happy to be invited to do so. But I felt that it was maybe not relevant to everybody, so I tried to extract some more general rules about web presence and monetizing, so maybe some artists, designers, whatever, could maybe apply those things to themselves. What I'm sharing today is just my own experience from my readings and my mistakes, so you know, not everything might apply to everybody, but it might be a good thing to start the conversation. So let me give you a little bit of feedback about I Care If You Listen. I started I Care If You Listen as a blog on my personal site when I was writing my master's thesis. It was a way for me to document the creative process and get people involved, and also a way for me to put my ideas on paper and just think about the process itself. It was also a way to create some fresh content on my own website for SEO purposes. So I basically installed a WordPress, a self-hosted WordPress on my server, and I just run it myself. When my thesis was done, I started doing CD and concept reviews just for fun. I was, at the time, writing for a blog in Europe called classicinfo.com, and I was the New York guy for them. I was covering events for them. It's a French-speaking blog. So I was already used to writing CD reviews or concept reviews for them, and I started doing it in English. And then shortly after I started in September 2011, somebody sent me an email. I was like, hey, can I write for you? I'm like, yeah, sure, you can do that. Yeah, absolutely. So Ty Livingston was the first one to write for me, and you know, he did a couple of essays on teaching music, the divide between jazz and classical music, and it basically grew from there. I got less and less comfortable with the title of the blog, meaning, you know, I Care If You Listen on my own website was totally fine, but I wasn't comfortable keeping this on my own server when people started joining it and writing for me. So I decided to move it to another server, still a WordPress self-hosted on a different server, and I got a .com, and there are basically two separate products. I didn't want any kind of traffic that people were bringing through their writing to benefit myself directly, so I just separated the two things. And that happened in October 2011. Now, we have 28 contributors in the US, in the UK, the Netherlands. I have some contacts in Ireland, and I'm thinking of branching out in Palestine, Iran, Iraq, more Middle East too, and some other European countries. Page views 85,000 since the beginning, for roughly 300 posts that vary from concept reviews, CD reviews, opinion posts. I've got this silly series about French composers' names. After hearing lots of people on campus butchering French composers' names, I was like, hey, let me just show you how you pronounce Boulez or Saint-Saëns or Messiaen. But I try to read now in an obnoxious way, like, hey guys, you know, if you're interested, this is how I would say it. I personally think that I butcher Lotoslavsky's name every time I say it. You know, I don't speak Polish, and that's totally fine. But you know, and it actually brings lots of traffic, and people get interested in the website through this CD MP3 series. I also release mixtapes every season that I curate myself. They're free, so at any point you can just go to the website and download some music for free. And that's a cool feature. I also produce videos. We have 23 so far, and you know, I'm trying to produce 2 a month, sometimes more when I have time. So, so that's basically the situation as of today. In terms of traffic, we grew pretty fast. That's July 2011, and basically what we got in terms of traffic in July a year ago is what we make on a good day these days, basically. So it's cool. And I was also really eager to get closer to the 10,000 mark, and we'll talk about it later in terms of monetization. I think that was like my goal. We're getting close. In June, because of the mixtape that I released, we got really close, you know, by 200 visitors or something. These are page views, not visitors. These are single page views. But we'll talk about later the 10,000 mark was kind of important for me. In terms of demographics, our readers are mostly male, 65 or 35. Most of them write music. A lot of them perform or sing. They visit us weekly, roughly, and they're all college educated. They interact the most with us on Facebook and Twitter, but we're present on many other platforms. So in the time that I have left, I would like to talk about web presence, branding, advertising as in you pay for it, and monetizing as they pay for it. Okay? So let's start with web presence. What I understand as web presence today is basically your website or your blog, and also social media presence. Okay. Sorry, I'm going really fast, but there's lots of material. The first idea when I think about web presence is the domain name. That's your key into the internet, basically, and that's sometimes a bummer when you have a great name, a great content, and you just log in and you realize that it's taken. So that's what I call the yes screen. You basically type a domain name and you get something from Time Warner Cable, you're like, okay, this is available, I'm totally fine, I can go ahead with that project. Then you have the F screen, and you type an address and it's for sale, and you can register and blah, 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 and that's not good because it's being taken. There are plenty of websites out there where you can check domains, but I think that's one of the first steps that I encourage people to do. You have an idea, you have a name, just check the domain first. If it's not available, find something else, because it's going to be so much more complicated later on. Also, apart from getting it early, get more than one. One is generally not enough. If you have a weird name, you might want to think about misspellings. You want to think about maybe hyphen in between. A friend of mine was working for a big department store in Paris, and she used to tell me that they bought on a regular basis between 120 and 150 domain names for one single store. Because, you know, people don't know how to spell that stuff, they're just going to try and, oh, okay, that works, you know. Have you tried to type google.com, for instance? Google.com will bring you to google.com. And people have bought the domain to bring you there. So think about more than one. Think about where you want to go. Videos are very important right now. Think about a .tv. I have a .tv. I'm not using it right now. If you type ICarryToListen.tv, you go straight to my YouTube channel. But maybe later on I'll do it. So just try to think about where you're going with that, and if your niche is in Japan, get a .co.jp. You can also be creative with the name of countries. The .es is interesting, the .ly is interesting. Some tiny African countries, countries in Oceania have very interesting domain names that you can use to match your name also. So that's something you might want to do. So let me switch now to the hosting. When you have a blog, and lots of people go straight to WordPress.com or Blogspot or stuff like that, and it's great for a while, but I think that self-hosting, basically downloading the open source software that is the blog, and hosting it on your own servers, gives you a greater freedom. For instance, in WordPress, if you have a WordPress.com blog that is hosted by them, you cannot touch the CSS, you cannot touch the PHP, and you cannot add plugins, which are great features of WordPress. But if you get a space with a nice domain name and an SQL database, you can install this yourself, and you get so much more freedom. You can actually make it your own thing. You can design your entire theme, etc., etc. So you have a greater control, and in the end, you have a more stable URL. If you have a website on Google, on Google website, you don't know what they're going to do with that. Maybe they're going to change it. Maybe you have printed 1,000 flyers. You have business cards or everything with this URL that might change in the future. And that's something that I'm personally not comfortable with that. There are in-between solutions. You can actually get some nice services with a WordPress.com that is hosted by them, but it starts at roughly $3,800 a month. That's a VIP solution, and that's much, much more than you would pay yourself if you were paying for the hosting and everything. So another aspect of web presence is social media. Just like the domain name, try to register very, very early. When you check your .com, check your Twitter name. Because some people just, park them and don't do anything with that. I wrote a blog post about it last year, about people who just like to use famous composers' names as their Twitter names. So if you just check Maurice Ravel on Twitter, there's this dude just talking about random stuff, but he has the Maurice Ravel, and maybe there's a Maurice Ravel Foundation somewhere that would like to have this Twitter name to talk about stuff they're doing, and they just can't, They're going to be Maurice_Ravel or something like that, but anyway. So same stuff, register early. If you're not familiar with social media, and I'm pretty sure that everybody here is, just read, learn, observe. There are some great white papers that are available at Buddy Media, just basically crash courses in social media. But observing is also actually very, very important. I see lots of people who are new to Twitter, for instance, and they just show up and they just blast you with stuff about themselves, or they don't really understand the retweet, they don't understand the mention, they don't understand the follow Friday and stuff like that. I think that when one is getting acquainted with a new technology, a new platform, observing is the first thing that one should do, so that also applies to social media. I also strongly recommend to use a dashboard. I personally use Hootsuite. My laser should work. And so that's basically a social media dashboard. It doesn't. Yes, it does. And these are basically all the feeds that I have. I have a bunch more on the right-hand side. Lots of people are really confused by Twitter, but I think they're confused because they don't really know how it works, or they don't know how to organize themselves to use Twitter efficiently. So here I have basically my stream of like 2,000 followers, something like that. And I spend some time reading it, and I might pick something up and that I find interesting. And I will generally move those people to my favorite list, which is a hidden, not public list of people that I actually follow and read every single tweet. So this is just like 25 tweets a second. This is maybe 5 tweets a minute. But I actually interact more with those people. These are my mentions. These are the tweets that I sent, my retweets, the retweets that are made for me, direct messages, etc., etc. The point is, whatever solution you use, whether it's Hootsuite, TweetDeck, etc., it just organizes and puts everything in front of you. I find the Twitter interface nice, but not functional at all. And I think most of the frustrations that come from that come from the interface. Their UI is not appropriate for the tool that it is. But I, of course, strongly recommend being on Twitter. Another great thing about Hootsuite is that you can actually automate it. I'm lucky to have a great guy who assists me for Actually If You Listen, and he schedules the tweets for me. I have this huge database of URLs and titles of each post, and we generate every other day tweets for the day or tweets for the 2 days that are coming. So you can also schedule, you don't have to be 24/7 in front of your computer interacting with people. You can schedule on Google+, on Facebook, on Twitter, very easily. If you're more tech savvy and nerdier, you can also try IFT. Has anybody heard of IFT? Yeah? It stands for if, this, then that, so it's the basic algorithm kind of philosophy. And it's a great way to connect your API. So if something happens on Twitter, put it in my Dropbox. If I get a text about this, post it on Facebook. So you can basically connect all your accounts, come up with these weird recipes that will match your own need in a perfect way. So I also strongly recommend this. So that's quickly about web presence. Let's talk about branding, and I'm going to talk about what I've done personally with Actually If You Listen. If you're familiar with the website, you probably realize that there are only 3 colors: black, white, and FF599, which is pink. This thing. And I try to be very, very consistent about it for a variety of reasons. I think colors is one of the first elements that can brand something. Picking black and white was also a way for me to create more contrast when I add pictures. Having a beautiful picture on a white background is really fantastic. I also try to get only 3 typefaces, 3 stripes, and the logo is on 3 lines. Something that I've used extensively. For instance, on my business cards, or the tote bags. I'm trying to be consistent with that. Another thing about the logo is I like to think it's as a square. Most people are going to see your brand as a square, as an icon. And I think that's statistical. Basically, people are going to discover you on your website. They're going to see a fab icon somewhere. They're going to see you on Twitter. They're going to see you on Facebook or Google+. What they're going to see is a square. So try to stay within a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of width and height, and you won't have an issue. When I see people who have very long logos that look great, I'm just thinking about how it's going to look, on social media platforms like that. Sorry, I'm going really fast, but we have an entire day to meet and talk if you have more questions. In terms of advertising, I personally don't like AdWords. I don't like this Google product. I've tried Facebook, Tumblr, and I'm going to try also to use Twitter later, but I'm very satisfied with Facebook and Tumblr. Facebook, you have 2 ways roughly to advertise. You can promote a post or you can have an ad, and I've tried both. The promoting post is very close to what Tumblr has implemented, and it works pretty well. For $5, I was able to get more than 2,000 in reach. I think I like that, but I've used extensively the ads themselves. And the way it works is basically you create a campaign with a budget and the timeline for your budget. Within this campaign, you can create multiple ads. So what I've done in the past is create at least 2 or 3 different ads, see how they perform, and based on their performance, you can deactivate one, you can change the copy, you can maybe change the picture, you can retarget. What's great with Facebook advertising is that you can target by location, by demographics, you can target, age, education, etc., etc. So if an ad doesn't perform too well in a segment, you can change it really fast. An example of a campaign for $100 over 4 weeks, I was able to get roughly 300,000 impressions with a click-through rate of 0.1, which is actually above average. Ended up being around 300 clicks that transformed into 183 likes. So that's roughly more than 50 cents a like. So you get maybe 6 or 7 likes for a latte at Starbucks, which is not too bad. We'll talk later on in the day about communities. If you know how to leverage this, amount of people that you get, it's actually not too expensive. In terms of monetization, you can monetize through advertising. Once again, I don't like AdSense. I really don't like that stuff. I think it looks very cheap on the website. It's totally random. I tried to install it in the past, and what I was basically doing every day was blocking URLs. So you get an advertising from, I don't know, somebody who sells like shoes, and you're like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in that on my website. You're just going to get the URL from this announcer, you go back to your dashboard, and you just block this URL. So that's what I was basically doing every day. So I don't like that. I don't even like Commission Junction. You can check it out on cj.com. And you can have a partnership with them and add some banners on your site. I think the best solution is to do it yourself. If you just Google Media Kit PDF, you'll find that lots of people have it out there. You can just read it and see how they do it, what kind of money they charge, what kind of banners they offer. But I think that's the best way to do it. Of course, you need to know your audience. Remember the demographics that I showed you earlier? Well, I use a tool that's based in Denmark that's called User Report, and we can talk about it later on if you want. It's a fantastic free tool that will create surveys for you, and people can just come and seamlessly give you information that you can use to build your media kit. Because advertisers need to know what's your audience basically, what can they sell through you and stuff like that. So that's an important tool. The next question that usually comes is, okay, but how much can I charge for advertising? I have no idea how much I can charge for a banner. So this guy, Yaroslav Stark, has a blog, and I think he's the only one that has a straightforward answer. That's what it's worth, but it's still a straightforward answer. You can basically take your daily visitors, divide by 10, and that's the money you should charge for a banner. He doesn't really say the size of the banner, but I think that's a good ballpark, and it took me a while to find it. You can also monetize through Amazon Associates. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's a cool program. You can just register, and whatever you share on Amazon, a product, a book, whatever you recommend, the link will be tagged with a specific tag that belongs to you, and you can take up to 10%. Right now, I think I'm around 10.1% of sales. So that's also a great way to generate income. As long as you do it by respecting your audience and proposing stuff that you feel strongly about, that's a great CD. I think you should buy it. It's a great artist. I really enjoyed it. There you go. You feel strongly about it, and you get a cut on it. Why not? So that's a perfect way to do it. Another way is also to sell your stuff. It's very easy to sell online right now with PayPal boutiques and stuff like that. People know Etsy, etc., etc. If you run a WordPress, there are some great plugins for e-commerce. Another formula that has been working for years is your article blogs plus a couple of staples equals a book. And lots of people do that actually, and it only works. No, it's true, it's really true. Maybe you just want to go through them and send them to an editor, make sure they look clean, but that's it. You don't even have to print the book. You can make an ebook very easily from your blog post if your content is relevant and fresh. You can also sell access based on, interest of people and stuff like that. That's also possible. I was thinking of doing a Scooby-Doo ending, but I'm going to go for the TEDx ending. Basically, based on my experience, I strongly encourage to learn for self-reliance. We all know that it's very difficult to find people that will do stuff for you for free. So you basically have to learn to do everything. I taught myself web design, graphic design, video editing, etc., etc. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one here. You have to do everything yourself. But up to a certain extent, you have to know enough to maybe be able to hire the right people, collaborate with the right people that are not full of bullshit, basically. They know what they're talking about because you also know what they're talking about. But there is also this point where your skills are going to become your limitations. And if you put your ego in it and you're like, no, I can do that. No, actually you can't. You've reached your limit, you need to give this to somebody else. So I think you also have to let go to grow. And that's the point that some people get stuck in sometimes. So learn a lot, but also let go. I know my limits, and I know that I should hire a professional to do some stuff. The third thing is be nice. I think we're all here for that. On this planet, that's what we're here for. Whatever we want to do, I think we're here to be nice. And social media makes it very, very important. If you bitch about somebody, hundreds of people are going to learn about it, people are going to retweet it, and you don't want to do that. So just be nice. And the last one is just do. There was a great presenter before who said that perfection is kind of your enemy, and I totally agree. Whatever you do, whether it's good, bad, or just do it. Just fucking do it. Just spend some time and do it, and you'll learn in the process, and people will get excited about it, and you'll meet more people, etc. But just do it. So deal. There you go. Thank you so much.